The space station Luminara floated in the darkness between 3 star systems. It was massive, bigger than most cities on Earth, and it was home to creatures from over 40 different worlds. Ships came and went every hour. Traders sold strange goods in the markets. Diplomats argued in fancy halls. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos walked a young human woman named Yuna. She was 26 years old. She had black hair that she kept tied back and eyes that noticed everything. She worked as a junior translator for Earth's small diplomatic team. It was not an important job. Most aliens did not think humans were important at all. Yuna walked through the station's main corridor. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved around her. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no faces at all. And almost all of them looked at her with something between pity and amusement. A group of Karath warriors stood near a food stall. They were huge, almost 3 meters tall, with gray skin like stone and muscles that could crush metal. One of them saw Yuna and laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Look," the Karath said to his friends. "The soft one is out walking again. Be careful not to breathe too hard. You might break her." The others laughed. Yuna kept walking. She had heard worse. The Karath were not the only ones who mocked humans. Everyone did. The insect-like breath clicked their mandibles whenever humans passed, making sounds that translated roughly to meat without shell. The tall, graceful Phanari would not even acknowledge humans existed. And the ancient Mordith, beings of pure energy, considered humans so primitive that speaking to them was beneath their dignity. Yuna understood why. By galactic standards, humans were nothing special. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no telepathy, no ability to survive in space without machines. Other species had evolved for millions of years. Humans had only just discovered fire. Relatively speaking, she reached her office, a small room in the human section of the station. Her colleague Taiho was already there, reading reports on his screen. He was older than her, maybe 40, with gray in his hair and tired eyes. He had been a diplomat for 15 years. He had seen a lot. How was the walk? He asked without looking up. "The usual," Yuna said. She sat down at her desk. Akara suggested I might die from a strong breeze. Taiho sighed. He turned his chair to face her. "You know, there are positions open on Earth, real positions. You do not have to stay here and take this treatment every day." "I want to be here." "Why?" "So aliens can make fun of you?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. She thought about her grandmother, who had worked in factories for 40 years so her children could go to school. She thought about her father, who had lost his job and found 3 more, working until his hands bled. She thought about herself, rejected 17 times before the diplomatic corps finally accepted her application. "Because someone has to prove we belong here," she said. Teho shook his head, but he smiled a little too. He understood. That evening, there was a reception in the Grand Hall. All the species sent representatives. It was a chance to make deals, form alliances, and show off. The human delegation was invited, but only because it would be rude not to invite them. Nobody expected them to matter. Yuna wore her formal uniform. It was simple compared to the glittering robes of the Phanari or the war paint of the Karath. She stood near the wall, watching, listening, translating when needed. A Karath approached her. She recognized him. His name was Gorak, and he was some kind of warrior chief. He was even bigger than most of his kind, with scars across his face and arms that showed he had fought many battles. "Human," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "I have a question." Yuna looked up at him. He was so tall that she had to bend her neck back to see his face. "Yes, I have heard that humans feel pain very strongly, that your bodies are sensitive. Is this true? We feel pain, Una said carefully. Like any creature. Gorak smiled. It was not a nice smile. Let us test this. He was holding a cup of some drink. Without warning, he poured it on her arm. The liquid was hot, almost boiling. Una felt it burn through her sleeve, felt it touch her skin. The pain was sharp and immediate. The hall went quiet. Everyone was watching. They expected her to scream. They expected her to cry. They expected the weak little human to fall apart. Una did not scream. She did not cry. She did not even step back. She looked at the burn on her arm. Already, the skin was turning red. It would blister. It would hurt for days. But she had felt worse. Her grandmother had worked with burns on her hands every day. Her father had broken his back and still gone to work the next morning. Pain was not new to humans. Pain was an old friend. She looked up at Gorak. Her eyes were steady. Her voice was calm. Is that all? The words hung in the air. Gorak's smile faded. Around the hall, the clicking and murmuring stopped. Nobody moved. A Vreth diplomat leaned toward his companion. Did she just not react? Impossible, the companion clicked back. Humans are fragile. Everyone knows this. But Una was still standing there, still looking at Gorak, still waiting. The Korath warrior did not know what to say. He had expected fear. He had expected weakness. He had expected everything except this small woman looking at him like his best attack meant nothing. You are strange, he finally said. For a human? No, Una replied. I am exactly like every other human. You just have not been paying attention. She turned and walked away. Her arm throbbed with pain. She would need medical treatment. She would probably have a scar. But she did not let any of that show on her face. Behind her, the hall slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. The aliens still thought humans were weak. They still thought humans were primitive. But now some of them were not so sure. Taiho found her in the medical bay later. He looked at her bandaged arm and shook his head. That was either very brave or very stupid, he said. Una smiled. Maybe both. What did you prove? That you can stand there while someone burns you? I proved that we do not break easy. She looked at her arm. And I proved that they do not know us at all. Not yet. Outside the medical bay, the station continued its endless business. Ships came and went. Aliens traded and argued and laughed. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something ancient was waking up. Something that had not visited this part of the galaxy in a very long time. Something that would change everything. The news came 3 days after the reception. It spread through Luminara like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, everyone knew. Within 2 hours, everyone was afraid. The Varn was coming. Una first heard the name when she walked into the common area and found it empty. This was strange. The common area was always busy. Aliens from every world came here to eat, to talk, to argue. Now it was silent. She found Taiho in their office. He was pale. She had never seen him look so worried. What is happening? She asked. Where's everyone? Hiding, Taiho said. Or praying. Or preparing. The Varan is coming. What is the Varan? Taiho looked at her. His hands were shaking slightly. The Varan is. It is hard to explain. It is a creature. The last of its kind. It has lived for 3,000 years. Maybe longer. Una sat down. 3,000 years? It has powers that no other being possesses. It can read minds. It can destroy ships with a thought. There are stories that it once ended an entire civilization because it found them unworthy. Taiho rubbed his face. Every few centuries, it travels the galaxy. It visits stations and planets. It judges species. Judges them? For what? For worthiness. Nobody knows exactly what it looks for, but species that fail its judgment have lost their seats on the Galactic Council. Some have lost much more. Una thought about this. And it is coming here? To Luminara? It will arrive tomorrow. Every species is preparing their best. The Korath are polishing their weapons. The Vreth are rehearsing their hive songs. The Fenari have brought their most beautiful dancers. Taiho laughed, but there was no humor in it. And us? We have nothing. Earth sent us diplomats and translators. We have no champions, no warriors, no ancient wisdom. What are our orders? Stay invisible. Do not engage with the Varan. Do not attract its attention. Let the stronger species handle this. Taiho stood up. I have already informed the rest of our team. We will stay in our quarters tomorrow. With luck, the Varan will not even notice we exist. Una nodded. But something inside her felt wrong about hiding. The next day, she ignored her orders. She stood in the Grand Hall with thousands of other beings. Every species on the station had sent representatives. The Korath warriors stood in formation, their weapons gleaming. The Vreth had formed their most perfect hive pattern. The Fenari floated like living art. Even the energy beings of Mordeth had condensed themselves into visible form. The hall was silent. Everyone waited. Then the station shook. Through the massive windows. Una saw a ship approaching. But calling it a ship felt wrong. It was more like a small moon, black as the void between stars, covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. It moved slowly, almost lazily, as if time itself bent around it. The ship did not dock. It simply stopped, and something emerged from it. The Varan. Una had tried to imagine what it would look like. She had failed. The creature was 20 meters tall, a thing of shifting shadows and light that could not decide what shape to take. Sometimes it looked like a great beast with too many limbs. Sometimes it looked almost humanoid. Sometimes it looked like nothing at all, just darkness with burning eyes. Those eyes. They were like stars that had learned to hate. They swept across the crowd, and wherever they looked, beings trembled. The Varan descended into the hall. Its voice was not a voice exactly. It was more like a feeling, a pressure inside the mind that became words. I have come. Those two words hit Una like a physical blow. She saw Korath warriors, the bravest creatures she had ever known, step backward. She saw the Vreth break their perfect formation. She saw beings of pure energy flicker with fear. The Varan moved through the hall. It passed the Korath without stopping. It passed the Vreth without interest. It passed the Fenari, the Mordeth. Every species that had prepared so carefully for this moment. Then it stopped. It was looking at Una. That one. The voice pressed into her skull. She could not move. She could barely breathe. Bring her to me. The hall erupted in confusion. Aliens looked around, trying to understand. Why would the Varan want the human? Humans were nothing. Humans were less than nothing. This had to be a mistake. Two Korath guards approached Una. They looked almost embarrassed. Human, one of them said quietly, you must come with us. Why does it want me? Una whispered. We do not know. But you cannot refuse the Varan. No one refuses the Varan. They led her forward. The crowd parted. Thousands of eyes watched her walk toward the ancient creature. She heard whispers in a dozen languages. Pity. Confusion. A few aliens looked away, as if they were watching someone walk to their execution. Taiho pushed through the crowd. Wait, she is just a translator. She is nobody. Take me instead. The Varan's eyes flickered to him. Silence, old one. I did not call you. Taiho froze. He could not move. He could not speak. He could only watch as Una walked past him. She stopped 10 meters from the Varan. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The shadows that made up its body moved like living things. The heat coming from it was like standing near a sun. And those eyes, those terrible burning eyes, looked at her with an intensity that made her soul want to hide. "Human," the Varren said. "Do you know what I am?" Yuna's voice was steady. She did not know how. "You are the Varren. You judge species." "Yes, and I have questions for you." "Why me?" "There are leaders here, warriors, beings far more important than me." The Varren made a sound that might have been laughter. The station shook again. "Important? I do not care about importance. I have spoken to emperors and generals. They are all the same. Proud, certain, boring." The creature leaned closer. Its face, if it could be called a face, was now just meters away. "But you, little human, you are different. I saw what you did 3 nights ago, when the Korath burned you." Yuna remembered. The hot drink, the pain, her quiet words. "Is that all?" The Varren repeated her words. "That is what you said. The creature burned you, and you asked if that was all." The burning eyes narrowed. "I want to know why. I want to know what makes a species so weak, so fragile, so utterly pathetic in every measurable way, still stand there and ask for more." The hall was completely silent. Every being was listening. Yuna looked up at the ancient creature. She was small. She was weak. She had no weapons, no powers, no armies. But she was still standing. "If you want to understand humans," she said, "then look, I'm right here." The Varren stared at her for a long moment. Then it nodded, a gesture so human that it seemed wrong on such a creature. "Yes," it said. "Yes, you are. And that, little human, is exactly what I want to understand." The examination was about to begin. The grand hall became an arena. Thousands of beings pressed against the walls, watching from every level and balcony. Nobody wanted to miss this. The ancient Varren had chosen a human for examination. A human, the weakest species anyone had ever met. Most expected to watch her die. Yun stood alone in the center of the hall. The floor beneath her feet was cold metal. Above her, the ceiling rose so high it disappeared into darkness. Encircling her, like a predator studying prey, was the Varren. The creature moved slowly. Its shadow body shifted and changed with each step. Sometimes it walked on 2 legs. Sometimes on 4. Sometimes it seemed to flow like water. The only constant was its eyes, those burning points of light that never left Yuna's face. "Your kind is new to the stars," the Varren said. Its voice pressed into her mind, filling every corner of her thoughts. "You have been traveling between worlds for less than 200 years. In the life of a galaxy, that is nothing. That is a single breath. We learn fast," Yuna replied. "Do you?" The creature stopped in front of her. "Tell me, human, what makes your species special? The Korath have strength. The Vreth have unity. The Fanari have beauty. The Mordeth have knowledge that predates most stars." It leaned close. "What do humans have?" Yuna thought about the question. She could lie. She could boast. She could try to impress this ancient being with grand claims about human achievement. But lies would not work here. She could feel the Varren inside her mind, not deeply, not yet, but enough to know that it would sense any dishonesty. "We survive," she said simply. "That is what we have. We survive." "Survive?" The Varren made that strange laughing sound again. "Everything survives until it does not. That is not special. That is just existence. No, you do not understand." Yuna took a breath. "We survive when we should not. We survive when everything says we should be dead. We survive because we refuse to accept any other option." The Varren was silent for a moment. Then it spoke again, and this time its voice was softer, almost curious. Show me. Yuna felt something change. The pressure in her mind increased. It was like cold water flooding into her skull, filling every space, touching every memory. She gasped. Her knees almost buckled. But she stayed standing that the Varan was inside her mind now. It was looking at her memories. Not just her memories, she realized. It was looking at something deeper. It was looking at humanity itself. Images flashed through her consciousness. Things she had learned in school. Things her grandmother had told her. Things buried so deep she had forgotten they existed. She saw ice ages. Massive sheets of frozen water covering the land, killing everything in their path. She saw small groups of humans huddled in caves, starving, freezing, dying. But not all of them. Some survived. They found food. They found warmth. They kept going. She saw plagues. Diseases that killed millions. Cities full of corpses. The stench of death everywhere. And still, humans survived. They buried their dead and kept living. She saw wars. So many wars. Humans killing humans with rocks, then spears, then arrows, then bullets, then bombs. Entire civilizations destroyed. Entire peoples erased. And yet, somehow, humanity continued. She saw her grandmother. Working in a factory. Hands burned from chemicals. Back broken from years of labor. But still smiling when she came home to her family. Still fighting for one more day. She saw her father. Losing his job. Finding another. Losing that one too. Working 3 jobs at once. Sleeping 4 hours a night, never complaining. Because his family needed him. Because giving up was not an option. She saw herself. 17 rejection letters. 17 times she was told she was not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. And the 18th application, submitted the day after the 17th rejection, because what else was she going to do? Stop trying? The Varan pulled back. The cold presence retreated from her mind. Yuna gasped for air, suddenly aware that she had been holding her breath. The creature was staring at her. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. I do not understand, it said slowly. You show me failure, suffering, death. You show me a species that has come close to extinction many times. How is this strength? Yuna wiped her eyes. She had not realized she was crying. It is not strength, she said. You are right. We are not strong. A Karth child could break my bones without trying. We are not fast. We are not armored. We cannot survive in space without machines. By every measure, we should not exist. Then why do you? Because we choose to. The Varan went still. Completely still. Even the shadows that made up its body stopped moving. Explain. When the ice came, we should have died. We did not choose to die. When the plagues came, we should have died. We did not choose to die. When we invented weapons that could destroy our whole world, we should have used them. We did not choose to end ourselves. Yuna stepped forward. One small step toward the most powerful creature in the galaxy. Every generation, every century, every moment, we choose to keep going. Not because we are strong. Because we are stubborn. Because we refuse to quit. Because somewhere, in every human heart, there is a voice that says, not yet. Not today. Not ever. The hall was completely silent. Even the air seemed to have stopped moving. The Varan stared at her for a long moment. Stubborn, it repeated. Yes, you survived through stubbornness. Yes, this is. The creature paused. This is not something I have encountered before. Other species survive through adaptation, through power, through intelligence. But stubbornness? Pure, irrational refusal to accept reality. Yuna almost smiled. Humans are very good at not accepting reality. The Varan turned away from her. It looked at the assembled aliens, all those powerful, ancient, evolved species, watching from the edges of the hall. "I have lived for 3,000 years, it said. "I have examined 10,000 species. I have seen the rise and fall of empires that lasted longer than your world has existed. And in all that time, I have never seen what I just saw in this human's mind." It turned back to Yuna. "You are weak. That is a fact. You will always be weak compared to most species. But I begin to think that weakness is not the same as defeat. And I begin to wonder if your stubbornness is something that the galaxy has forgotten." The creature raised one massive limb. "We are not finished. I have more questions. But you have earned something that I rarely give." "What is that?" Yuna asked that the Varan's eyes blazed brighter. "My attention." The Varan did not move for a long time. It stood in the center of the grand hall, like a statue made of shadows, its burning eyes fixed on something far away. The assembled aliens waited. They were afraid to speak. They were afraid to move. They had never seen the Ancient One hesitate like this. Yuna waited too. Her legs ached from standing so long. Her head still throbbed from the mental examination. But she did not sit down. She did not complain. She simply waited. Finally, the Varan spoke. But it did not speak to her. It turned to face the crowd. "I have walked this galaxy for 3,000 years. The words filled the hall like thunder. Every being listened. I have seen things that would break the minds of lesser creatures. I have watched stars die and be born again. I have spoken with beings so old that they remember when the universe was young. And in all that time, I have made it my purpose to understand one thing. What makes a species worthy?" The Varan moved through the hall. It passed the Korath warriors, and they shrank back despite their pride. "Strength," the creature said. "That is what most species believe makes them worthy. The Korath believe this. They have built an empire on their muscles and their weapons. They are feared across 100 systems." It stopped in front of Gorik, the warrior who had burned Yuna. The Korath leader stood straight, trying to show no fear. But his hands were trembling. "Do you know what your ancestors were?" The Varan asked him. Gorik swallowed. "Warriors. Like us." "No." The Varan's voice was almost gentle. "Your ancestors were prey. Small, weak creatures that lived in caves and hid from predators. They were hunted nearly to extinction. And in their desperation, in their terror, they evolved. They grew strong because they had no other choice. Their strength was born from fear." Gorik said nothing. His face had gone pale. The Varan moved on. It approached the Vreth, their insect bodies clicking nervously. "Unity," it said. "The Vreth believe that their hive mind makes them worthy. Millions of individuals thinking as one. A perfect society with no conflict, no disagreement, no weakness." The Vreth Queen stepped forward. "We are the most efficient species in the galaxy. Our unity makes us strong. Your unity was born from catastrophe." The Varan's eyes blazed. "A plague nearly destroyed your world 500,000 years ago. Your ancestors survived only by linking their minds, by sacrificing individuality for survival. Your beautiful unity is the scar of ancient trauma." The Queen stepped back. She had no response. The Varan continued through the hall. It spoke to the Fanari about their beauty, explaining how it evolved from a need to attract mates on a dying world. It spoke to the Mortith about their ancient knowledge, revealing that they had once been a species of short-lived creatures who extended their existence through forbiddance. Technology. Every species had a secret. Every species had a wound that had shaped them. The Varan knew them all. Finally, the ancient creature returned to the center of the hall. It stood next to Yuna, and somehow that made her seem important. A small human woman standing beside a god. Every species in this hall has survived through some great advantage, the Varan said. Strength, unity, beauty, knowledge. These are the tools that evolution gave you. These are the reasons you did not die when your worlds tried to kill you. It looked down at Yuna. And then there are humans. The hall was silent. Every eye was on her. Humans have no natural advantages. None. They are not strong. A child of most species could defeat an adult human in physical combat. They are not unified. They fight among themselves constantly. They are not particularly beautiful or intelligent by galactic standards. They have no special abilities, no psychic powers, no natural weapons. The Varan paused. When it spoke again, its voice was different. There was something in it that might have been wonder. They should not exist. By every rule of evolution, by every principle of natural selection, they should have died 1,000,000 years ago. Their world is hostile. Their bodies are fragile. Their minds are prone to madness. Everything about them is wrong. Yuna looked up at the creature. She did not know where this was going. But they are still here. The Varan turned to face the crowd again. In this human's mind, I saw something I have not witnessed in 2,000 years. I saw a species that refuses to accept reality. When the universe tells them to die, they say no. When logic demands their extinction, they ignore it. When every other species would have given up, they keep going. The Varan raised its limbs. The shadows that made up its body expanded, filling the hall with darkness. I have judged 10,000 species. Do you know what happens to most of them? The strong become cruel. They use their power to dominate others, and they forget why they became strong in the first place. The unified become stagnant. They stop growing, stop changing, stop improving. The ancient become tired. They have seen too much, and they no longer care about anything. The darkness retreated. The Varan was looking at Yuna again. But humans are different. Humans are still hungry. They have been among the stars for less than 200 years, and already they are everywhere. Not because they conquered, not because they dominated, but because they simply refused to stop. The creature's voice dropped to something almost like a whisper. I had forgotten what that looked like. I had forgotten what it meant to fight simply because you refused to lose. In 3,000 years, I had become like the ancient ones, tired, bored, waiting for something interesting. It gestured too. Yuna. And then I saw this small creature stand in front of a being that could destroy her with a thought, and ask if that was all. I saw her memories. Her grandmother working until her hands bled. Her father never giving up. Her own endless persistence. And I remembered. The Varan's eyes blazed brighter than ever. I remembered what it meant to be alive. To fight. To struggle. To refuse to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain. Humans have reminded me of something that the galaxy has forgotten. It turned to face the assembled species. You have all become comfortable. You have your empires and your systems and your ancient traditions. You have forgotten the hunger that made you what you are. You have forgotten what it means to be desperate. The creature's voice became thunder. Humans have not forgotten. Humans cannot forget. Because for them, the desperation never ended. They are still fighting for survival. They are still hungry. They are still climbing. It looked at Gorak, at the Wrath Queen, at all the powerful beings who had gathered to prove their worth. And that makes them more dangerous than any of you. The hall was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Yuna stood still, her heart pounding, as the Varan prepared to do something that no one had ever seen before. The Varan, ancient destroyer of worlds, judge of species, the most powerful being in the known galaxy, did something that no living creature had ever witnessed. It lowered itself. The massive body of shadows and fire bent slowly, like a mountain deciding to kneel. The burning eyes descended from their impossible height. The limbs that could crush starships folded beneath the creature. And the head, that terrible head with its stars made of hate eyes, touched the floor of the grand hall before Una, a human woman, 26 years old. Junior translator. Nobody special by any measure. The Varan was bowing to her. The silence that followed was the deepest silence Una had ever experienced. It was the silence of thousands of beings trying to understand what they were seeing. It was the silence of certainties crumbling. It was the silence of a galaxy changing. I bow not to your strength, human. The Varan's voice was soft now, almost gentle. It vibrated through the floor, through Una's bones, through her very soul. I bow to your spirit. In 3,000 years, I had forgotten what it meant to fight simply because you refused to lose. I had forgotten what it looked like when a creature faces impossible odds and says, I will try anyway. Una could not move. She could not speak. She could barely breathe. Your ancestors faced ice that covered their world, and they built fires. They faced plagues that killed millions, and they learned medicine. They faced each other in endless wars, and they somehow chose not to destroy themselves when they finally had the power to do so. The Varan raised its head slightly, just enough to look at her. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand how many species have failed that test? Una's voice was barely a whisper. I do not know. Hundreds of species have reached the point where they could end themselves, and they did. They pushed the button. They released the virus. They broke their own world. The Varan's eyes dimmed slightly, and there was something like sadness in them. But humans did not. You came to the edge of extinction. You looked down, and you stepped back. Not because you were wise. Not because you were good. But because somewhere, in some stubborn part of your collective soul, you refused to quit. The creature rose slowly. It was still enormous, still terrifying, but something had changed. There was respect in its posture now. Your people will face trials, the Varan said, and its voice was a prophecy. The strong will try to crush you. They will see your weakness and think you are easy prey. The ancient will dismiss you. They will see your youth and think you are not worth their attention. And you will fall. Again and again, you will fall. It reached out with one massive limb and it, impossibly gently, touched the burn mark on Una's arm. The scar that Gorak had given her. The wound that she had refused to cry about. And you will get back up. That is your gift. That is your curse. That is why, in 1,000 years, the galaxy will wear a human face. The Varan withdrew its touch. It turned to face the assembled species one final time. Mock them again at your peril. Its voice was thunder now, shaking the walls of the station. I have seen the future in her eyes. Humanity does not conquer through strength. They do not win through power. They win through endurance. They win by refusing to stop. They win by getting back up every single time they are knocked down. The burning eye swept across the crowd. And nothing in this universe, outlasts a human who has decided not to quit. The Varan began to move toward the exit. Its massive form cast shadows across the entire hall. But before it left, it stopped and looked back at Una. I will return in 100 years, little human. I want to see what your species has become. I suspect I will not be disappointed. And then it was gone. The shadow body flowed through the doors and up into the sky. The massive ship that was not quite a ship absorbed the ancient creature and departed. Within minutes, there was no sign that it had ever been there, except everything had changed. The silence continued for a long moment. Then Gorak the Korath warrior stepped forward. His face was unreadable. Una tensed, expecting anger, expecting violence. Gorak knelt. The massive warrior, 3 meters of muscle and stone, put his knee on the ground, and bowed his head before the small human woman. "I burned you," he said. "I mocked you. I was a fool." Yuna did not know what to say. "The Varan is right," Gorak continued. "We have grown comfortable. We have forgotten what it means to fight when fighting seems pointless. But you have not forgotten. Your people have not forgotten." He looked up at her. "I would be honored to learn from you." Before Yuna could respond, another alien stepped forward. A Vreth diplomat. It bowed its insect body in a gesture of deep respect. "We have underestimated your kind," it clicked. "We will not make that mistake again." Another stepped forward, and another, and another. One by one, the representatives of 100 worlds came to bow before the young human translator. Some were ashamed. Some were curious. Some were frightened by what they had witnessed. But they all bowed. Yuna stood in the center of the galaxy's most powerful beings, all of them paying respect to a species that had nothing except the refusal to die. She touched the burn on her arm. The scar that Gorak had given her. The wound that had started everything. "Is that all?" She whispered to herself. It had become something more than words now. It was a statement. A challenge. A promise. Teho pushed through the crowd. His eyes were wet with tears. He grabbed Yuna in a hug that probably broke several diplomatic protocols. "You did it," he said. "I do not know how, but you did it." "I did not do anything," Yuna replied. "I just did not quit." Later, after the ceremonies and the speeches and the formal apologies, Yuna stood alone at a window. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Varan was traveling to its next destination. Somewhere out there, the news of what had happened was spreading across the galaxy. And somewhere out there, humans were doing what humans always did. Working, fighting, falling, getting back up. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Earth. She looked at it and smiled. "What does it say?" Taiho asked, joining her at the window. "They want to know what happened. The whole planet is watching." Yuna put the communicator away. "I do not know what to tell them." "Tell them the truth. Tell them that a monster looked into the soul of humanity and was impressed. Tell them that the galaxy finally sees us for what we are." "And what are we?" Taiho smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him since she arrived at the station. "Stubborn. We are so wonderfully, impossibly, gloriously stubborn." Yuna laughed. She looked at her burned arm. She looked at the stars. She thought about her grandmother, working through pain. Her father, never giving up. Herself, applying for the 18th time after 17 rejections. Humans were not special. They had no great powers. No ancient wisdom. No natural advantages, but they had something else. Something that even a 3,000-year-old god had forgotten. They had the simple, stupid, beautiful refusal to quit. And as Yuna stood there, looking at the infinite darkness filled with infinite possibilities, she made a promise. Not just for herself, for all of humanity. "Is that all?" She whispered to the stars. It was not a question anymore. It was a challenge. And the galaxy would learn to fear it.